Jason, they're planning to ruin you. That was the first thing Tina said before she even sat down. Her lipstick was smudged, her heels were off, and her wine glass was dangerously full. The words came out crooked and blurred, slathered in alcohol and barely loud enough to cut through the music and laughter echoing from the patio. It was supposed to be a celebration. Rick's birthday. 45 years old and proud of it, flipping ribs on his new smoker like he'd just reinvented fire. Everyone was there. Heather, my wife of 11 years, moving around the backyard with a manicured grace that screamed, "Look at us, we're perfect." Her mother Cheryl, already on her third gin and tonic and still in full control. My son Mason was playing soccer barefoot on the grass, laughing like the world was simple. And me? I was just starting to realize it never had been. I looked at Tina like she was speaking a foreign language. "What the hell are you talking about?" She took a long sip. I was darting toward the patio. "Heather, Cheryl, they've been meeting with lawyers. You're not supposed to know. You're supposed to find out when it's too late to do anything. But you've always been nice to me. So screw them." My heart dropped, but my face didn't move. 11 years of marriage teaches you how to stay unreadable. "You're drunk." "Yeah," she laughed bitterly. "I am drunk. And that's why I'm the only one here telling you the truth." I should have walked away, should have laughed it off, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed still, watching Heather and Cheryl huddle together at the garden table. They were going over something on a tablet. Not Pinterest, not family photos. Heather was pointing at something, then nodding. Cheryl was tapping the screen and smiling that smug, close-lipped smile of hers. The one she wore at our wedding when she told me she was relieved Heather found someone stable finally. And that's when my gut twisted. Because 2 weeks ago, Heather made a big deal about moving our savings into a new investment account, something Cheryl's accountant had set up. "It's for growth," she said, brushing me off when I asked for paperwork. "Trust me for once." That same week, she suddenly wanted me to sign a stack of routine tax documents. I didn't even question it, just scribbled my signature like a fool. Now Tina was telling me I might have signed my damn future away. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice low, cold. Tina hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't know all the details. Just what I heard after Cheryl had won too many vodka tonics last week. Something about pushing Jason out before the fiscal year closes and ensuring the inheritance is protected from male incompetence." Her words, not mine. It felt like someone had dumped ice water down my spine. This wasn't just betrayal. This was orchestration. Heather wasn't walking out. She was removing me like a tumor. Quietly, legally, efficiently. The woman I'd built a life with, raised a kid with, cried with when her father died, was playing chess with my existence, and I was the board. I forced a chuckle and grabbed a soda from the cooler, pretending like I was just cooling off. But inside, my mind was unraveling. I remember the night 3 months ago when Heather suddenly stopped wearing her wedding ring to work. "It irritates my skin," she said. That same month, she started working late, every Wednesday and Friday. She started locking her phone. She started wearing more makeup on days when we weren't even going anywhere. And when I asked, gently, like an idiot, she flipped it back on me. "You're being paranoid. Do you need help? Are you seeing someone about this? Anxiety?" Now I was realizing. She didn't need to hide forever. Just long enough to finish the plan. I couldn't confront her here. Not with Mason running around. Not with Cheryl watching me like a hawk. That woman had always treated me like the dog Heather brought home from a shelter, good enough until he barks too loud. Instead, I smiled. Walked back to the patio. Kissed Heather on the cheek like nothing happened. She flinched. Barely. But enough. Then I checked my phone under the table and opened my secure app. The one connected to my private legal fund. A number I hadn't dialed in years. I hit call. "Max," I said when he answered. "Jason, what's going on?" I watched Cheryl look up and smile at me like a spider watching a fly crawl deeper into the web. Heather leaned in to whisper something in her ear. "I need to prepare a full extraction," I said, my voice quiet but shaking with something hot. "Bank accounts. Business shares. The house title. Everything." Max was silent for 2 seconds. Then, "When?" "Now." I didn't sleep that night. Heather came to bed around 1 in the morning. She reeked of red wine and lavender lotion and didn't say a word. Just slipped under the sheets, turned her back to me, and scrolled her phone with the brightness low. Her screen lit up the room in cold pulses. Every few minutes I heard the faint ding of a text, muffled quickly, followed by the telltale tap-tap of her manicured fingers. I lay next to her, motionless, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. My thoughts were wildfire. Every smile she'd ever given me, every kiss, every whispered, "I love you," they all started to rot in my memory. How long had she been faking it? Was any of it real? She turned her phone face down on the nightstand. That's when I caught a glimpse of the wallpaper, not the family photo we'd taken at the lake last summer, not our son Mason's first day of school. It was a selfie. Her. In a tight red dress I'd never seen before, with makeup far heavier than she ever wore around me. She looked wild. She looked single. I closed my eyes and kept still. She shifted slightly, as if checking if I was asleep. I waited until her breathing turned heavy and rhythmic before slipping out of bed. I grabbed my hoodie from the back of the chair and crept down the hallway like a thief in my own home. In the office, I booted up my old ThinkPad. It was slow, but it still had encrypted access to my investment dashboards, a few offshore backups, and Max's private portal. First step, pull everything I legally could into accounts Heather didn't know existed. Then I began combing through recent bank activity. And that's when I saw it. Heather had moved $42,000 from our primary joint account into something labeled EF Planning LLC. I'd never heard of it. I Googled. It was a shell company incorporated in Delaware just 8 weeks ago. The registered agent? A legal firm Cheryl had used when settling her late husband's estate. My blood turned to smoke. I looked deeper. The rabbit hole didn't just run deep. It was paved with documents I'd signed blindly over the past 3 months. A power of attorney clause buried inside an updated life insurance form. A beneficiary adjustment I thought was for Mason's college savings. Everything was forged from my own trust. Max texted back just after 3 a.m. "I've reviewed the situation. This isn't a divorce. It's a quiet corporate takeover. You're the asset, Jason, and they've nearly acquired you." By sunrise, I had shifted the last piece, my grandfather's land deed, into a sealed trust under Max's firm. Heather wouldn't even be notified until it was far too late. When Mason woke up at 7, I was already dressed and pretending to make waffles. Heather stayed in bed. Classic weekend move, pretend you're exhausted, make me do the parenting, then swoop in later to play supermom. But something was off. She came down eventually, hair perfect, smile sharp, eyes watching every move I made. And when she kissed my cheek, she lingered. Too long. "You sleep okay?" she asked. "Like a rock." I lied. She poured herself coffee. "You've been quiet lately." I shrugged. "Work's been crazy." She leaned against the counter, stirring her mug slowly. "You know, I was thinking maybe we should start talking about updating the prenup. Just in case. It's been over a decade." There it was. The next move. Just as Tina said. I gave her a long look. "You worried I'm going to leave you?" She laughed. "No, of course not. But things change. Money changes. People change. It's just smart." I wanted to scream in her face, to throw the mug across the room, to tell her I knew everything. But I didn't. I smiled. "Sure. Let's talk about it next week." She walked away with a little swing in her hips like she thought she'd won. Let her believe it. Because by next week, I wouldn't be here. And neither would a single cent she thought she was about to steal. That Monday, I left the house at 7:45 a.m. sharp, like I always did. Heather thought I was heading to the office. I wasn't. Instead, I drove 2 towns over to a quiet strip mall where Max had a private suite, no markings, no names on the door. Just a keypad and a red light that flicked green when I entered the passcode. He was already inside, sleeves rolled, hair still wet from the shower, 2 empty espresso shots beside his laptop. Max was the kind of lawyer you called when you wanted things done off the radar. He didn't do divorces or custody fights. He specialized in disappearing acts for high-net-worth clients who'd pissed off the wrong people. And I guess now, that included me. He didn't say good morning. Just pushed a folder across the desk. "Read this and tell me if any of it looks familiar." I flipped it open. It was a timeline. Everything Heather and Cheryl had done over the last 6 months. They created the LLC. Shifted funds, quietly transferred our joint brokerage account into a separate trust. Cheryl had signed half the documents as a proxy with my forged initials tucked into the corners. But the part that hit me hardest? They'd also listed Mason. There it was. in black and white, custody contingency plans, a draft petition stating that I was increasingly emotionally unstable, with compulsive financial behavior and a history of paranoia. Lies. All of it. She's setting you up as the villain, Max said calmly. The plan's airtight if you sit still. I leaned back, jaw clenched. She's using my son as a pawn. She's using everything as a pawn, Max replied. Because you're still playing chess. And they've been playing war. I laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was that hollow sound you make when you realize the walls have been closing for a lot longer than you noticed. What do I do now? We pull the trigger. Max turned his laptop to me. It showed a digital flowchart, my escape plan. Transfer all liquid assets to offshore holdings. Move business shares into a sealed, irrevocable trust already done. Lock Heather's access to anything not legally joint. Delay the prenup discussion with feigned cooperation. Disengage emotionally. Disappear. Disappear how? I asked. There's a property in Montana under your cousin's name. Fully paid. No digital footprint connecting you. We'll set up LLC routing to pay taxes and utilities. You go off-grid for at least 30 days. And Mason? Max paused. Not yet. Not until we've got leverage. But trust me, if you stay, she'll flip the narrative. You'll lose him and half your legacy. I closed my eyes. 30 days. 30 days without my kid, without my name, without my life. I didn't even know what I was anymore. A husband? A father? Or just a walking asset Heather had been repackaging for her mother's retirement fund. I signed the final documents with shaking hands. Max encrypted everything, sealed the flash drives, and handed me a prepaid burner. If she suspects anything, she'll lawyer up within 24 hours. You have 5 days, Max. I nodded. When I got home, Heather was on the phone in the living room, pretending to sound concerned. Yeah, Jason's been really tense lately. Just work stress, I think. I'm trying to get him to talk to someone, but you know how men are. She glanced at me as I walked in, gave me that sweet, supportive wife look. The kind of look you'd never suspect was hiding a dagger. I waved, smiled back, pretended I hadn't just read a document that claimed I was mentally deteriorating and economically volatile. I went upstairs, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. This woman, the woman I once thought I'd grow old with, was playing the long game. And she had no idea I was already 5 moves ahead. In 4 days, I'd vanish. In 5, she'd panic. And in 6, the fortune she thought she'd stolen would already be mine. By Tuesday, Heather's tone had changed. Subtle, careful, but different. The warmth she used to wrap herself in like a silk robe was thinning at the seams. She'd start sentences and not finish them. Watch me longer than usual when I spoke. Offer to bring me coffee when she never did. The performance was cracking, but only because she was starting to sense a shift she couldn't name yet. She wasn't sure if I knew, and that uncertainty was eating at her. That morning, she made breakfast. Real breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast, the works. Mason was still asleep upstairs, so it was just us, sitting across from each other in a quiet kitchen, like strangers on a train who used to be in love. I've been thinking, she said, placing a cup in front of me with that innocent act that now made my skin crawl. Maybe we should take a little getaway. Just the 2 of us. I didn't look up. Now's not a good time. Exactly why we should go, she said softly. You've been working too much. You're stretched thin. You're tense. That word again. Tense. Like she was rehearsing a script. I took a sip of the coffee. Bitter. She hadn't even added sugar. I'll think about it. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It's important we stay connected, Jason. I wanted to throw my mug into the wall, but I didn't, because I needed her calm. I needed her convinced. And more than anything, I needed her blind just a few days longer. She kissed my cheek as I stood to leave. I didn't kiss back. Instead, I whispered, "Thanks for breakfast." Her body stiffened almost imperceptibly. I could see it, cracks forming. Her plan was supposed to unfold quietly, elegantly, like slipping into a warm bath. But now the water was rippling, uncertain. And Cheryl? She noticed too. I caught her that afternoon as I picked Mason up from her place. She was babysitting for a few hours while Heather had a meeting. What kind of meeting involves high heels and a blouse that unbuttoned itself? Cheryl was on the porch, pretending to prune roses. She didn't do yard work. Not unless there was theater involved. You look tired, Jason, she said without looking at me. I stayed quiet, opening the gate. Mason's laughter spilled through the house from the living room. You've always worked hard. I'll give you that, Cheryl continued. But sometimes when a man starts to unravel, he doesn't realize it until it's too late. There it was. The chessboard talk. The nudge to doubt myself. I turned and looked her straight in the eye. Good thing I haven't unraveled then. She smiled, but there was ice behind it. Let's hope not. For your sake. That night, I searched Heather's car. I waited until she took her bath, 20 minutes every night, a ritual carved in stone. Glass of wine, Bluetooth speaker, candle. Her sacred time. I used the spare fob, eased into the garage, and slipped into the passenger seat of her Lexus. It didn't take long. In the center console, beneath a zipped-up makeup bag, I found a printed itinerary. 2 airline tickets. First class. San Diego to Maui, leaving in 6 weeks. Not for Jason and Heather. For Heather Green and Ethan Calloway. I froze. The name lit a fire in the back of my skull. Ethan. Dr. Ethan Calloway. Heather's former colleague from the medical conference last fall. The one she swore was just a brilliant diagnostician who loved talking shop. The one she'd mentioned 12 separate times in passing like he was a quirky cousin. I flipped the paper over. There were hotel confirmations too. 5 nights. Oceanfront suite. King bed. Private terrace. I stared at it for a long time, the air leaving my lungs slowly. My hands didn't even shake. Not now. Not anymore. Because it wasn't even about love. Or betrayal. Not just that. This woman, this snake in designer skin, was planning a romantic island escape with her affair partner, after gutting my life and leaving me legally hollow. I put everything back exactly how I found it. Then I walked inside, past her candlelit bathroom door, where she was humming softly under the water like nothing in the world could touch her. And I smiled, not out of rage, but because now I knew everything I needed to destroy her. 2 more days. Then the storm hits. Wednesday morning, I watched her closer than I ever had before. Not with love. With precision. Heather moved around the kitchen like she was born on a stage, graceful, calculating. She packed Mason's lunchbox, checking things twice, brushing imaginary crumbs from the counter. The kind of careful you only see in people hiding something expensive in plain sight. She kissed Mason on the forehead before he ran out the door and then turned to me, sipping her lemon water like it was a prop. Don't forget, we have that dinner on Friday. My mom made the reservation. Cheryl's name hit my nerves like a hot needle. Right. Can't wait. Heather squinted at me. You okay? Never better, I said. That morning, I didn't go to work either. Instead, I drove to the storage unit Max had secured for me under an alias. The name on the paperwork was Jeremy Caldwell. The address led to an empty lot in Nevada. Inside the unit, a fireproof briefcase with everything that still mattered. Copies of Mason's birth certificate, our marriage license, every financial statement I could need, 3 flash drives with documentation of every shady transfer Heather and Cheryl had orchestrated, and a burner laptop with GPS permanently disabled. I stood there in the cold fluorescent light and stared at the truth I'd assembled piece by piece. This wasn't paranoia. This was premeditation, fraud, infidelity, attempted financial homicide. And I was done playing nice. I locked the unit, slid the key into my sock, and left. Max called me just before noon. Clock's ticking, he said. I finished routing the crypto wallet. The wire hit this morning. That's the last of the liquid assets. Everything else is in lockdown or frozen pending probate shelf filters. Any reaction from her side? She's sniffing. Nothing solid yet. Good. That meant she was starting to feel it. I went back home at 2 p.m. Heather was already there, sitting in the living room with a glass of wine and a face that didn't belong to the woman I married. No warmth. Just calculation. Everything okay at work? She asked. Busy, I said. Boring. You've been leaving early. Coming home late. You've been tracking me? I asked, letting my voice drop just enough. She blinked. Of course not. I just worry about you. Liar. She stood and walked over to me. Look. I know we've been distant lately. Maybe we should take that trip. The one I mentioned. What trip? To San Diego, she said too quickly. Then caught herself. Just a weekend. Nothing crazy. Clearer heads. Reset. Not Maui. Not him. She was testing my memory. I nodded. We'll talk about it. She smiled, relieved. Thought she still had control. That night, I waited until she was asleep and crept back to her Lexus. This time, I took the printed itinerary and photographed every page. I uploaded it to the secure drive Max had set up and added one line at the bottom. Begin phase 2. The next morning, I left a note on the kitchen counter. Hey babe, running early meetings. Might be home late. Love you. It was the last lie I'd ever tell her. Instead of work, I drove out to the drop house. It was a nondescript rental 30 miles outside the city. Fully furnished, minimal tech, 2 security cameras Max had installed himself. Inside was a small desk, a prepaid phone, and an unregistered Jeep parked out back with a full tank. This was my safe zone. From here, I'd pull the last strings and watch as she started to drown. By noon, the first move hit, a frozen bank account. One of the ones she used to route payments from our joint checking into EF Planning LLC. Heather called me 3 times in the next hour. I didn't pick up. Then came the texts. Hey, I think there's something wrong with our bank. Did you move any money? Jason, can you please call me? This is serious. I'm not kidding. What's going on? Jason. The silence on my end was the match. Her panic would be the gasoline. And the explosion? Still to come. By Thursday, the unraveling had begun. Heather didn't go to yoga that morning. She didn't pour her ritual green smoothie or post her usual motivational quote with a perfectly filtered selfie. Instead, she stayed in, pacing the kitchen like a cat in a cage, her robe hanging half open, her phone glued to her palm. I knew because I was watching her, live, through the hidden cameras I had installed a month ago when I first felt the shift. She called Cheryl at 9:12 a.m. Something's wrong, she hissed. One of the accounts is frozen. The Chase one. Cheryl sounded groggy. That's not possible. I tried to transfer funds to EF Planning this morning, and it bounced. The system said the account is restricted. Do you think he knows? Jason? No. He's not that clever. Wrong again, you venom-soaked gargoyle. Heather paused. He's not answering. Not picking up. Not even reading texts. Cheryl went quiet. Has he seen the Maui tickets? I hid them. They're in the console. He hasn't touched the car. Another wrong guess. Cheryl sighed. We need to move. Forget the slow roll. Set up a meeting with Ridley. We'll start the emergency petition for divorce. Play the mental instability card. Get ahead of this. I could almost hear Heather nodding. Should I confront him? No. Let him keep thinking you're oblivious. Just get the paperwork ready. Once we file, we control the narrative. He'll be scrambling. Oh, I was scrambling all right, just not in the direction they thought. I didn't wait. By noon, Max had triggered a full audit on EF Planning LLC, sent anonymous flags to IRS watchdogs, and leaked a complaint about suspicious financial activities linked to a mother-daughter tax evasion ring operating across state lines. All completely untraceable, all entirely legal, and just enough to jam their gears for a week. I changed all the passwords, cloud storage, health insurance, car lease portals, utilities. Everything registered under my name was now either locked down or rerouted. Heather would hit nothing but dead ends and forgot password screens. At 3:26 p.m., I watched her try to log into our brokerage account 3 times. Then she tried the investment dashboard. Blocked. She called me again. 6 times. Then a voice message, shaky and coded in fake sweetness. Hey babe, not sure what's going on. I think there's some kind of glitch with the accounts. If you get a second, just give me a quick call. Love you. I laughed. She was losing altitude fast, but still clinging to the mask. She didn't know how to function without it. That evening, Mason called me from Cheryl's landline. My chest ached hearing his voice. Dad, why aren't you coming to dinner? I'm working on a big surprise for you, I said. But I promise I'll be there soon. He was quiet for a moment. Is Mom mad at you? No, I lied. She's just confused right now. Okay, I miss you. I miss you too, buddy. More than anything. When the call ended, I sat on the floor of the drop house and stared at the ceiling. My son was in the middle of a war he didn't know existed, and the only way to protect him was to play the monster for a little while longer. At 9:03 p.m., Heather made her final move of the day. She called Ridley, her lawyer. The camera in the office captured the whole thing. I need an emergency filing. Custody claim. He's not well. He's hiding money. Isolating. I think he might be preparing to run. I'm scared for Mason. She even managed a tear. Ridley bit. We can draft something for Monday. Monday's too late, she said, voice cracking. We need to act now. It was her first real panic. That night, I slept with my phone in one hand and the burner in the other. Max texted around 2 a.m. She filed an ex parte request. Emergency hearing Friday 9 a.m. Perfect. She was walking straight into the fire, and I was holding the matches. Friday. D-Day. I woke up before the sun. No birdsong. No light. Just the hum of the fridge in the drop house and the ticking of my watch, each second a drumbeat toward war. I hadn't seen Mason in 3 days, and the weight of that silence felt like a stone in my ribs. But today wasn't about grief. Today was about precision. Heather thought she was going to blindside me in court and walk out holding all the cards. She was going to find out I'd already reshuffled the deck and set the damn table on fire. At 7:15 a.m., I parked a block away from the courthouse in Max's spare BMW. No plates. No trace. I was clean-shaven, wearing a suit I hadn't touched in years, dark gray, crisp collar, the one Heather used to call my CEO costume. Fitting. Because today, I was taking back control like a hostile takeover. Max met me outside security, calm as ever. She filed a mental instability clause. Claimed emotional neglect, compulsive behavior, potential flight risk. Her affidavits, colorful. Did she bring Mason? She tried, he said. Judge blocked it. Too volatile. Good. That meant someone on the inside still had a working conscience. We entered the courtroom at 8:52. Heather was already there. She looked like a widow at a gala, black dress, minimal makeup, hair tied in a bun. Regal. Poised. Cheryl was next to her in some high-end funeral shawl, clutching a pearl necklace like she'd just buried her second husband. Heather didn't look at me. Not right away. But Cheryl did. Her eyes narrowed. Not fear. Not anger. Confusion. She hadn't expected me to show up. She thought I was already halfway to some anonymous beach, cowering under a fake name. They both thought I'd collapse the second they filed. That I'd melt down, act erratic, prove their lies for them. Instead, I walked in clean, nodded to the bailiff, and sat down like I'd ordered the room myself. When Heather finally looked my way, her face cracked for a split second. Then came the judge. Honorable Lena Rowe. Tough. Sharp. Not one for theatrics. She looked at Heather's attorney. Mr. Ridley, this is an emergency filing. You're asking for a temporary protective order, custody transfer, and account freeze. On what grounds? Ridley stood. Your Honor, our client is in a deeply unstable marriage. The respondent has demonstrated paranoid behavior, has relocated assets, and may be preparing to flee the state with their child. We have reason to believe this is part of a pattern of emotional decline. Heather dabbed a fake tear. She didn't even tremble. Rowe turned to Max's response. Max stood like he'd just been waiting to be asked. Your Honor, we anticipated this, which is why we've submitted a motion to dismiss the emergency claim on the grounds of premeditated financial fraud, malicious deception, and coordinated manipulation of shared assets. We have documentation. He handed the clerk a thick folder. Rowe raised an eyebrow. Documentation? Yes, ma'am, Max said. Including digital transfers to shell companies, falsified investment forms, and travel documents indicating an ongoing extramarital relationship, all while attempting to legally disinherit the respondent and seize full control of their shared estate. We've also filed for an immediate injunction to preserve asset integrity. The air left the room. Heather didn't cry now. She didn't breathe. Her fingers twitched once before she balled them in her lap. Ridley turned to her, whispering harshly. And Cheryl? She leaned in and muttered something too low for the mic to catch. Heather just stared at me like she'd never seen my face before. Do you have evidence of infidelity? Judge Rowe asked. Max smiled faintly. Printed travel confirmations. Hotel reservations. 2 names. 1 suite. The judge exhaled through her nose and leaned back. Then, the court will not be granting the emergency request. In fact, I'm issuing a temporary stay on all major financial activity by either party pending review. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks with full evidentiary hearings. Until then, custody arrangements remain unchanged. Bam. Gavel. Session over. Heather's face drained white. Cheryl actually whimpered. Ridley stood there like someone had just erased his law degree in real time. I didn't look at any of them. I just stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked out. When I hit the sunlight, I finally smiled. Because this was no longer a fight for survival. This was my hunt now. And Heather had no idea what was coming next. She didn't come home that night. Not Heather. Not Cheryl. Not even a call. Which told me one thing. They were regrouping. The moment that Gavel hit the wood, everything flipped. They weren't prepared for the court to listen to me, to believe me. And now, with all their moves frozen, all their stolen paths blocked off, they had only one card left: chaos. I stayed quiet. I waited. And that night, Mason and I ate Chinese takeout in the living room, just the two of us. He curled up beside me with a plate full of lo mein and asked me if Mom was okay. I told him the only truth that wouldn't hurt him. She's figuring some things out. He nodded slowly. Is she mad at you? No, I said. She's just confused. He accepted that. Kids always want to believe the best, even when they know better. I tucked him in around 9. He asked if I was staying in the house tonight. Yes, bud. I'm right down the hall. He smiled and fell asleep within minutes, like he hadn't just spent the week surrounded by a growing battlefield. I watched him for a long time. Every breath he took made the war feel heavier. And then I went downstairs, turned off all the lights, and waited in the dark. It was almost midnight when headlights painted across the blinds. Heather's Lexus. I didn't move. I watched her step out in those same heels she wore to court, clicking across the driveway like she still owned the earth under her feet. But her walk was off, too fast, too stiff. Her hair was wild around her shoulders. She looked less like a wife and more like a high-class fugitive. She didn't come through the front door. She went around. I knew what she was doing. Back window. Quiet entrance. Same move she'd used when she snuck in after her girls' trip to Scottsdale last November. I waited until I heard the window unlatch and slide open. Then I flicked on the lights. She froze halfway inside, knees on the sill, hair caught in her lip gloss, wide eyes like a kid busted sneaking in after curfew. Jason, she whispered. I was wondering when you'd stop hiding. She climbed in slowly, brushing herself off like this was all beneath her. I didn't want to wake Mason. You could have used the front door. She looked around the room, scanning for signs. Where is he? Asleep. Safe. Still has his parents. For now. Her jaw flexed. You embarrassed me today. I laughed. Actually laughed. You tried to take my son, my money, and rewrite me as mentally unstable. But you're the victim. She stepped forward. We didn't have to go to war, Jason. You forced this. No. You designed this. Months ago. Don't insult both of us by pretending you tripped into it. Silence. Then, softly, I needed to protect myself. By emptying our accounts into a fake LLC? By sleeping with Ethan Calloway behind my back while pretending to be the perfect wife. Her lips parted. For a split second, I saw the real her, the one behind the mask. Cold. Strategic. Unapologetic. You don't understand, she said. Ethan's different. He sees me. And I deserved more than this. She waved her hand around the room like it was beneath her, like I was beneath her. I stepped closer. You know what's funny, Heather? I would have given you more. Anything. Everything. If you just asked. But instead, you chose to steal it. To orchestrate a hit job on my life like I was just some disposable draft of the real thing. She blinked. You plan to walk away rich and clean, I said. Instead, you'll leave with nothing but receipts. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Swallowed. That part of her that always felt superior? I watched it fracture. What do you want from me? She finally asked. I want you to go upstairs, kiss Mason goodnight, and remember what love really feels like. Then get out of this house. You don't live here anymore. Her face twisted. She wanted to scream, wanted to fight, but she couldn't. Because for the first time since this entire charade began, I wasn't playing her game. She went upstairs. I heard her footsteps in the hall. Heard her whisper, I love you, to a sleeping child she'd nearly weaponized. When she came back down, her makeup was running. But I didn't feel sorry for her. I opened the door. She stepped out without a word. And as the door closed, I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was just the silence before the real storm. Saturday morning, I woke to quiet. No calls. No texts. No legal emails. No threats in disguise from Cheryl's lawyer wrapped in fake civility. Just silence. Too much of it. Heather had gone dark. No movement on her bank cards. No login attempts on our accounts. Her Lexus hadn't moved from Cheryl's driveway. No new travel plans. No plane tickets. No social media posts. The digital trail had gone ice cold, which meant she was either preparing her next move offline, or Ethan Calloway had entered the game. By noon, Max confirmed it. She's met with Calloway twice in the last 48 hours. First time at his clinic in Newport. Second was a private dinner at the Black Orchid. He paid cash. No cameras on site. But one of our guys saw her hand him a flash drive. Proof. Not yet. But if I had to guess, it's her insurance policy. She knows her ship is sinking, so she's looking to anchor herself to his, or blackmail him into fixing this mess for her. Max didn't respond. He didn't need to. I spent the rest of Saturday in the garage, tearing through old boxes, trying to distract myself. Anything to stop picturing Mason in the middle of all this. Anything to stop imagining Heather whispering some rehearsed version of the truth into his ear when I wasn't around, painting me as cold, distant, dangerous. But late afternoon, Mason broke the silence. He knocked on the garage door, sneakers scuffed, a soccer ball in his hand. "Dad, can we kick for a bit?" I dropped the wrench without hesitation. We spent the next 30 minutes in the backyard, chasing the ball across dry grass and laughing like nothing had ever broken. Like love was still simple. And for that half hour, it was. But then Mason asked the question, "Why doesn't Mom sleep here anymore?" I stopped mid-pass. "She's working through some stuff," I said carefully. "Did you fight?" "Yeah, we did." "Is it my fault?" My throat tightened. I dropped to one knee, grabbed his shoulders. "No, buddy. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? Not a single part of it." He nodded. I was too wise for his age. "Okay." That night, after he fell asleep, I called Max. "She's going to try something," I said. "I don't know what, but she's too quiet." Max didn't disagree. "We're monitoring everything. Phones, travel records, medical records, even Calloway's prescriptions." I paused. "Why medical?" He hesitated. "Because she's not just using him for a second chance at love, Jason. She's leveraging his career, his license." I pulled his malpractice filings. There's a closed settlement from last year. Could explain why he's so quiet. "You think she's got something on him?" "I think she's playing him like she tried to play you." I sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it all crawling up my spine. "She's not done," I said. "No. She's only just realized she's losing." Sunday morning, the storm finally cracked open. It started with an anonymous tip to Child Protective Services. A fabricated complaint. Jason Green, 42. History of emotional instability. Known to disappear without warning. Recent court confrontation. Sudden isolation of child. Refusal of communication with co-parent. I received the notice via email at 9:02 a.m. By 10:15, a CPS worker was at my door. Heather hadn't just started a war. She'd opened a new front. With Mason as the battlefield. The woman from CPS was young, maybe early 30s, with a clipboard, a tired smile, and eyes that said she didn't enjoy being the sword in anyone's custody war. Her name was Angela. She introduced herself softly, asked if she could come inside just for a chat, and made it very clear that I wasn't under investigation yet. But I knew the playbook. Heather had filed a tactical report. Fabricated concern. Thrown a vague cloud of suspicion just to slow me down, dirty my name, put a crack in the court's perception of me right before the next hearing. Even if nothing stuck, the damage could linger. And Heather was counting on that. Angela sat at the kitchen table while I poured coffee and stayed calm. Mason was upstairs watching cartoons, blissfully unaware that his future was being discussed in bullet points and whispers downstairs. "She said you've been isolating," Angela said, scanning her form. "Removed Mason from school temporarily. Withheld contact. I notified the school personally. He's still enrolled. We're just managing his schedule during this legal situation." Angela nodded, noting it. "And the alleged instability?" "She filed an emergency order claiming mental instability and lost. The judge sided with me. You can pull the transcript." She flipped a page. "Have you ever left the state with your son without notifying his mother?" "No." Any signs of distress? Regression? Nightmares? None. He's eating well, sleeping well, and we've kept a consistent routine. She watched me. Long too long. Then, gently, can I speak with him? I nodded, walked upstairs, and told Mason a nice woman was here who wanted to ask him a few questions about how things were going. He didn't even flinch. He was so used to the chaos now that strangers at the kitchen table didn't feel out of place. Angela stayed with him for 15 minutes. When she came out, she looked conflicted. He's fine. Actually, more than fine. He's articulate, calm, clearly feels safe here. Because he is safe here. She nodded slowly. This complaint isn't standard. It was pushed through a supervisor. Someone made noise. Heather. Angela didn't say it. She didn't have to. She stood and left me with a polite smile and a thin pamphlet on child well-being during divorce. The second she was gone, I called Max. She's playing every dirty card she's got left. She's panicking, Max said. Her lawyer's not answering media calls anymore. She's on her own. Good. I want her to feel it. But I didn't. Not yet. I still had one card to play, and I had to time it perfectly. That night, I went back to the Lexus. Heather hadn't cleared her GPS history since the last visit. The final 3 destinations? A private pharmacy in Laguna Beach. A wellness clinic in LA I didn't recognize. And a residential address in Brentwood. I checked all 3. The pharmacy specialized in compounding hormone treatments, some of the same names that had shown up in Cheryl's credit history. Estrogen boosters. Testosterone blockers. Sleep stabilizers. The clinic? Run by an ex-colleague of Ethan Calloway. And the address in Brentwood? That's where it all snapped into focus. It wasn't a hotel. It wasn't a rental. It was a gated home, listed under a holding company. Calloway Properties, LLC. Heather hadn't just been planning a vacation. She was preparing to move in. New name, new address, new life. She thought she could vanish with Mason and start over, painting me as the broken ghost left behind. But I'd seen the threads. Pulled everyone. She thought she had one last safe place. She had no idea I'd been watching it all. I didn't call her. I didn't warn her. Instead, I called Max. Is the affidavit ready? It's been ready for days, he said. You want me to file? Not yet, I said. But send it to Ridley. He paused. You sure? She's trying to run. Time she realized the ground under her feet is already gone. I ended the call. Heather wanted to disappear? She was about to find out what it feels like to be erased. The message landed at 9:06 a.m. sharp Monday morning. Max sent it with surgical timing, attaching the full affidavit, financial exhibits, audio recordings from her little post-court confession, GPS logs, even her lover's real estate records. Not to the court yet. Not to the judge. He sent it to Ridley, Heather's lawyer. I wasn't aiming to win. Not today. Today was about panic. Because Ridley, for all his pomp, had a reputation to protect. He'd walked into court thinking this was another domestic spat he could finesse into a soft landing and a fat retainer. But what he got was evidence. Fraud. Perjury. Document tampering. Custody manipulation. And worst of all, clear, undeniable collusion. The moment the email hit his inbox, Heather's phone started ringing. I watched it happen on camera. Her Lexus was parked outside Cheryl's mansion, still in her pajamas, pacing the marble kitchen floor like a tiger losing its territory. First call, Ridley. She didn't answer. Second call, Ridley again. She picked up. Why didn't you tell me about the clinic? Or Calloway's property? I could only hear her side of the call through the microphone embedded in her key fob. I didn't think it mattered. It wasn't relevant. He was never supposed to see any of that. Then Ridley's voice, faint but furious. You didn't think hiding financial assets, staging false custody concerns, and building a relocation plan under another man's name was relevant? Heather's silence told the whole story. He hung up on her. She stood there, stunned, like someone had unplugged her from the universe. And then, the spiral began. She grabbed her phone, scrolled furiously, then made a call. Ethan, everything's falling apart, she snapped. Jason knows everything. The shell company. Maui. The Brentwood house. All of it. Pause. Don't you dare tell me to calm down. You said you could fix this. You said no one would find out. Another pause. Then a scream so sharp it pierced the speakers. You son of a bitch. You used me. She threw the phone across the kitchen. It hit a drawer and cracked on impact. I watched her unravel in real time. Her backup plan had just left her on red. Her lawyer was pulling back. The judge already saw through her first attack. She had no safe place left. And Cheryl? She stormed in 5 minutes later like Satan in silk. And she wasn't kind. I told you to handle this cleanly, she hissed. Now I've got frozen accounts, a flagged LLC, and IRS emails in my inbox. Do you realize what you've done? Heather broke. I was trying to protect us. You said he was weak. You said he'd roll over. You made him a threat, Cheryl said, coldly. You turned him into a goddamn hurricane. And right then, right there, I saw it. Heather looked at her mother not like a daughter, but like a failure. The mask was off. The lies were crumbling, fast and ugly. Get out, she whispered. Cheryl blinked. What? I said get out. Cheryl laughed. You're going to need me. You always do. Not this time. Heather pointed toward the door with shaking hands. Her voice cracked, but didn't break. Get out. Cheryl left. Furious. But she left. Heather sat down on the kitchen floor, alone, surrounded by her broken phone, a shattered mug, and the debris of a life she tried to steal piece by piece. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pity. I felt ready. I texted Max one word. File. Within 15 minutes, the judge's office received the full filing. Motion for full custody, petition for damages, injunction to prevent removal of child from state lines, and a sealed supplement requesting a formal investigation into fraudulent legal manipulation. I was done dancing in shadows. It was time to drag the truth into the daylight. By the end of the day, a court-martial would be knocking on her door. And this time, she would be the one standing in front of a judge. With everything to lose. The knock came at 5:42 p.m. 3 firm raps against Cheryl's front door. Heather was in a robe, hair unwashed, pacing with her laptop open, trying to log into any financial portal that still remembered her name. She didn't even check the peephole. She just opened the door, expecting maybe a delivery or, God help her, some final shred of normalcy. Instead, she found 2 court-martials. Ma'am, we're here to serve you notice of immediate court proceedings per order of Judge Rowe. You are required to appear tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for an emergency hearing regarding custody, financial misrepresentation, and contempt. I watched her from the parked Jeep across the street, eyes behind dark lenses, hands tight on the steering wheel. She barely held herself upright. Her knees buckled as she took the papers, hands trembling like she'd just been asked to hold a lit fuse. This was it. The crescendo. The final note of the symphony she orchestrated with poisoned hands. Heather didn't cry. That's not her style. She just stood in the doorway, barefoot on that cold marble tile, blinking at the reality she could no longer negotiate or seduce. That night, I slept in my own house for the first time in 2 weeks. Mason was curled up beside me with a flashlight and his favorite book, as if the storm had already passed. And in a way it had. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse with Max beside me, our suitcases full, not of clothes, but of evidence. Ironclad, labeled, time-stamped. Heather arrived alone. No Cheryl, no Ridley, no Ethan. She was a ghost of the woman she'd once pretended to be. Pale, hollow, smaller somehow. She didn't speak during the hearing. Not once. Judge Rowe read the evidence silently, lips tight, eyes flicking through pages with increasing disgust. The details weren't just damning. They were surgical. Heather's emails coordinating financial transfers. Audio of her conspiring with Cheryl. The Maui tickets. The Brentwood house lease. CPS weaponization. The false claims of mental instability. When Rowe finally looked up, her voice could have cut glass. This is not just betrayal, Ms. Green. This is malicious intent. You attempted to rewrite custody, erase a parent, and engineer financial collapse under the guise of legal process. You filed knowingly false claims and manipulated your own child's environment to construct a courtroom narrative. Heather said nothing, just sat frozen, staring at her manicured hands like she couldn't recognize them anymore. I am granting full legal and physical custody to Mr. Green, effective immediately. A restraining order will be issued against Ms. Green for a minimum of 6 months. Any attempt to contact the child outside approved channels will be considered a violation. And then, additionally, this court is opening a fraud inquiry into YEF Planning LLC and the associated transfers made under the guidance of Cheryl Winters. Gavel. Silence. The entire courtroom exhaled like it had been holding its breath for weeks. Heather didn't look at me when she stood. She didn't cry or scream or argue. Her legs moved like they were made of glass. She walked out alone. No hand to hold. No exit plan. No escape. She was done. Later that day, Mason and I stood in the driveway, kicking a ball around in the sunlight. He was laughing again. Really laughing. That sound, the one I hadn't heard in weeks, pushed tears right behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. He paused, looked at me with that curious tilt he gets. Is Mom coming home soon? I bent down, hands on my knees, looked him straight in the eye. She's not coming back for a while, Bud. But you're safe. I promise. And this time, I meant it. Later that week, I received 33 missed calls from a blocked number. All in a row. The voice messages started off calm. Then came the apologies. Then the anger. Then the pleading. But it was already over. The accounts were closed. The house was mine. My son was mine. And every lie she'd built her throne on had crumbled beneath her heels. She thought she could stage a legal ambush and bleed me dry. Instead, I let her dig her own grave, and then I buried the blueprint she used to build it. I never had to lift a hand. I just disappeared long enough for her to reveal everything. And when I came back, I brought the whole damn storm.